Yesterday we did China and Americas. Today we do EMEA and Pacific Power Rankings. Let's start with EMEA, and like we did yesterday, we'll first take a look at what my preseason prediction was for EMEA, and yeah, not that great. Okay, let's start from the bottom up then, and the team that I think I'm going to leave off the list is BBL. Whilst BBL did win a map against Na'Vi, I don't think that they were that impressive, and then getting stomped by Koi, I think is a pretty bad sign for your team, so I'm going to put BBL in last. In 10th place, I'm going to stick Gentle Mates. Now, some of you are going to feel like that's harsh. I have made my grievances known with their logo. I don't think it's very good. But outside of that, I also just feel like Gentle Mates are a bit too one-dimensional, to be honest. They go for this double duelist play a lot, and, you know, they go for this kind of a very aggressive style a lot of the time. And I think, honestly, it's a bit too predictable. It is a bit too one-dimensional for my liking, so I'm not a massive Gentle Mates believer, to be honest. It's unfortunate we only got to see them play against Vitality, the way that the group stage kind of shook out there. So that doesn't help really in knowing where Gentle Mates are versus these other teams. And whilst they did have, you know, like a good map or two, I'm just not a believer going forward long term that that kind of style will be very successful. In 9th place, I'm going to put Koi. Now, Koi is a weird one, and you might be like, but they made the play-in stage, so they have to be much higher. But then I really just, looking at them in that play-in stage, it was like, you don't belong, right? Like, you aren't good enough versus these teams. You clearly still have a long ways to go for Koi, and I still think that that is going to be the case. So Koi in 9th, and then moving just above them, a team that I was quite high on coming into the season. You'll see that I had this team in 4th, but I'm going to put Giant X in 8th. Giant X have made a roster change. They took out Nookie, which is an interesting decision. Let's just put it like that, because I think a lot of people think that Nookie is a good player, including myself. They bring in Purpo, so they're going for multiple role swaps as well. If you don't know, Purpo is a duelist player, so Patino, I think, then is going to play Flex, and probably, I would guess, Hoodie is going to play Sentinel. So we've got multiple roster swaps. We're changing quite a lot of stuff here for Giants, and they were in a tough group, don't get me wrong, so I'm not going to, like, you know, flame them too hard for their kickoff performance, but, you know, they didn't look amazing there, and now we're making changes. At 7th place, we're going to put Team Liquid. Again, shouldn't need too much explanation here. Team Liquid didn't look that convincing, and it looks like it's going to take a bit more time, apart from when Kiko is dropping, you know, crazy amount of frags on a map. So, yeah, they've got a lot of work to do, and I feel much more confident in the top 6 than I do Liquid. Then we come to the top 6, which I think is very, very difficult to rank here in EMEA. I'm actually going to surprise some people here by putting Team Heretics in 6th, but I'll explain why. So Heretics are going to have some roster issues. Miniboo isn't going to be there for some weeks because he's got exams. Also, we got Woot is struggling to get a visa, and so won't be there, I think, for the first week as well. And I think that just, you know, this lack of time to practice together, potentially, you know, shuffling a roster about, all of that kind of stuff, will cause some problems for Heretics. Putting them at 6 is going to look like it's disrespect. It's not disrespect. In fact, I'm going to draw a line here on the EMEA one. I'm going to draw a massive line here just to show you, like, this is almost 2 different lists. I have a lot of belief in the other teams as well, so that's why I'm putting them at 6th. In 5th, I'm going to go Vitality. Now, Vitality obviously are adding in Trex to their roster right now, and I think Trex is very good. So Vitality on paper looked pretty good, and I was, you know, my questions about Vitality coming in were more so about the newer players that we hadn't seen in Tier 1 just yet, but actually I was very impressed by both Kicks and Runner in their games. So with those two looking good already, you know, you add Safe, Trex, 2 very good players to Sander as well. Like, I think this is a very good team, and, you know, they should be looking to get to Master Shanghai. That's what I think is so exciting about EMEA, is I do think there are 6 teams that legitimately should be like, we should make it to Shanghai, which is going to be very interesting to see. In 4th place, I am going to put Foot. Now, Foot got eliminated in the group stage, and everyone was kind of like, oh, Foot aren't that good. You know, they disappointed. They didn't live up to expectations. But then it just turns out that they were in the EMEA group of death, apparently, with Heretics and Karmine Corps, right? So it looks better, you know, after Heretics and Karmine Corps were the ones that went to Madrid. You know, Foot's lost all of a sudden, and to be fair, they were very close to eliminating Karmine Corps, right? They went to a 20-18 overtime on Lotus, which they lost, and then they came out the next map and destroyed Karmine Corps. So that very easily could have been the end of Karmine Corps' run right there, and maybe it would have been Foot instead, who were going to Madrid. In 3rd place, it's going to be Na'Vi. Navi's loss to Heretics, I think, spooked a lot of people. That was one game, and I think that Heretics played very well in that game and caught Navi a bit off guard. But I do still think that in the earlier games that we saw from Navi, we actually saw some good stuff. So I still have faith in Navi overall. I know that some people are Navi doubters now. They're kind of, on that Navi doubt train, but I am still a believer. And then we come to the top two. And again, it's like, who are you going to put number one? Who are you going to put number two in this? Where are your Fnatic stocks at? And mine are pretty high. Right, I know that for a lot of people they won't be, so I'm still going to put Fnatic 1 and Karmine Core in second place. For me personally, I think that Fnatic clearly came into the season kind of underestimating everyone, and I think they will have gotten the wake-up call that they perhaps needed. But I think they're still going to be the best team, and I'm expecting them to still win this group. And you might call that copium, hopium, whatever, but I think we saw some of Karmine Core's problems, still there. Some of their inexperience still there at Masters Madrid. Maybe lost a couple games that maybe they could have won. A couple maps that they should have maybe won that they ended up not winning because of that inexperience. And so overall, I still think Karmine Core are a learning, growing team. Maybe by the end of the year, I will be putting them number one. But for now, I still do have faith in Fnatic. And now on to Pacific. And for Pacific, well, this is what my old ranking looked like. Again, parts of this are absolutely awful. Don't take notice of the fact that Gen.G are in 8th. Okay, so let's again go bottom to top here. And in 11th, very simple, DFM. Until they win a game, I'm not putting them not in 11th. I know that you might argue that other teams maybe even looked worse than DFM. But until they win a game, they are staying in 11th place. In 10th, I mean, the bottom of Pacific is a bit of a mess. In 10th, we're going to put Global. No real surprise there. In 9th, I'm going to put Bleed, who I was way too high on. Elevated convinced me that Bleed were going to be good. Even with the addition of Zest, I'm going to need to see it first before I have any faith in this team and what this team is doing. Okay, now in the middle of Pacific is where I think it's a bit more interesting, but I'm going to go for this. I'm going to say that Zeta Division are in 8th. I was not that impressed with what Zeta were doing overall. Some of you might think that's a bit low, but I'm a doubter. I'm a Zeta doubter, and I'm going to put Talon in 7th. Talon looked like kind of those weird, wacky teams, that could be good on a certain day, but could also be awful on other days, right? And so I'm putting Talon in 7th, and I think we saw that when, they beat Team Secret the first time, and it was like, whoa, Talon, looking good, 2-0 against Secret, that's pretty good. And then they lost 2-0 to Secret later on. It's like, oh, Talon, not that good, right? So yeah, that's where I think Talon are right now. Bit of an inconsistent team. We'll see if they can get it together, but I'll put them in 7th. And 6th place, I'm going to put Team Secret. Now, I had a big debate of whether RRQ or Team Secret would be 5-6. Let me explain putting RRQ above Team Secret. So I think that Team Secret, and I was explaining this on Cosmic Divide, they're kind of like the most average team, right? They are kind of the line that if you are better than Team Secret, you're like better than average. And if you're worse than Team Secret, you are worse than average, right? They are the exact middle of all of VCT. In terms of their playstyle and in terms of how they perform. I know that people for both these teams, both RRQ and Team Secret, are getting kind of hyped up because they played Gen.G close. The thing is, I don't put too much stock into that really at all, because I think Gen.G, by the time the end of Masters Madrid, were a much better team than they were when they were playing RRQ and Team Secret, in my opinion. And the proof to that I would give is that Gen.G lost to PRX. When PRX weren't that good, Gen.G still lost to that team. But then at Masters Madrid, Gen.G stomped a better version of PRX, right? So clearly there was growth from Gen.G to go from losing to PRX in their first game to then stomping PRX at Masters Madrid. So I think you can't take too much away from like the Team Secret and RQ. Oh, they lost a close game against Gen.G. That means that they're good, right? I still think that they're kind of, not bad, right? But they both belong here. And I guess my RRQ hopium is still a little bit there. And I do think that RRQ will just end up being above this line, but I really wouldn't mind swapping these two either around. Yeah, either way I think is fine for 5-6 Team Secret RRQ. Then the top 4, I mean, this is the thing. I think that DRX, I will still give them credit to be 4th, but I think they could be closer to RRQ than they are the top 3. Is where I'm at with DRX right now. And then the top 3, I think, is pretty clear, where T1 are like the clear 3rd team, I think, right now. And then it's a toss-up again. Who am I going to put number 1 and number 2? Obviously, Jing is back with PRX. Is that enough to convince me that PRX should now be 1 on this list? The answer is going to be no, because I have completely disrespected Gen G throughout this entire process, and they deserve better. So I'm still going to put Gen G at number 1, and I'm going to put PRX at number 2. But I think that it's a pretty clear top 2 for me right now. And then, third place, I would put T1, but maybe it could be up for grabs.